Today on JiK Labs, we're going to dive into the world of Excel. We're going to look over the basic layout and some basic functions that you can find in Excel. So let's get Excelling. Before we get started, we should talk about what exactly is Microsoft Excel. First of all, Microsoft Excel is a software or app that you can find within the Microsoft 365 or Microsoft Office product suite. Microsoft Excel is a powerhouse. It allows you to enter a lot of data, sort and filter all of that, manipulate it, analyze it, and once you have everything together, you can create visualized charts and graphs to show what your data represents. Right, so we want to get started. First thing we need to do is open up Excel. There's three ways we can do it. If you have your file folder open and you're ready to go, you can right click anywhere in that file folder or on your desktop and say create new Excel worksheet. It's going to create the file and you can tell the name, and we're going to call this Intro to Excel. And if you were to save that file, double click on it, Microsoft Excel would open. But since we're going to show you two other ways, we need to look at those first. If you go down to your Start menu, you can scroll through, find Excel, click on it there. Or if you want it, you could come into your search bar and your taskbar and type in Excel, find the app, click on it, and Excel will open up for you. All three options work. It's just a matter of your personal preference. Since now we have Excel up, we want to create a new workbook. And now we have Excel. And here we go, a blank workbook. As you can see, we have our columns up top, A through Z, and if you keep going, you'll get into double A, double B, so on and so forth, and then our rows, which are represented by numbers. Down here, we have our sheet 1, which is our first spreadsheet in this workbook, and if we were to hit this plus sign, we could add a second sheet. But today we're not going to mess with any of that. We're going to leave everything with sheet 1. All of this grid that you see down here is made up of cells. Right now we are selected on cell A1. We read by column to row. So this is A1. If we click to the right, that would be B1. If we click one down, it would be B2. And that is shown up here in this top left hand in the name box. It allows you to see what cell you're selected. If you select multiple cells, it will show you by showing the number of rows by the number of columns. To highlight more than one cell, you click where you want to start and drag, and then it highlights. And if you unclick, everything is still highlighted. But since we have no data here, it does not really matter. Additional things we need to know about Excel before we start to enter our data is up here is our file menu. If we were to click on File, we can go Open New Documents, get back to our template screen, or we can save or save as, print, share, publish, what have you. Also, we can get into the options down below, but we're not going to do that today. So we're going to hit this back arrow to get us back to the Excel window. And we're going to look up here at the top. Up top, we have tabs and or shortcuts that they're each own individual ribbon bar, as Microsoft calls it. On the Home tab, we can copy, cut, format our cells, justification, we can merge cells, we can deal with the formatting of the numbers, and additional formatting, conditional formatting, which we will not get in today. If we go to Insert, we can insert shapes and charts, which we mentioned that Excel has the capabilities of doing. Again, items we will not get in today. Page layout, we can deal with the margins, the orientation of the page when it prints, the size, and everything to that effect. Formulas, it's shortcuts as well as help for when entering formulas. The Data tab allows for sorting and filtering of your data as well as some additional features. Review allows you to protect and or share your spreadsheet. In View, there are a couple different things we can do with the way we are looking at things. I like to use, and this is all personal preference, I like to use the normal view. This is what we're seeing right now. You have the choices between page break view, page layout view, and then you can also make your own custom views. Also on this page, you can zoom in and out. For the purposes of this video, we've actually zoomed in on our Excel sheet and we're seeing this at about 145%. So we could set it back down to 0, or I'm sorry, we could set it back down to 100. We could zoom in the area selected, or down here in the lower right hand window, there's a zoom bar. So right now we're 145, we can zoom in more, or we could zoom back out. So there are multiple ways to do what we need to get done. For now, we're going to leave it at 145 so everybody can see what we're doing. And of course, there's help. We need a lot of that here at JiK Labs, so we use this tab second most. So that was a brief overview. As I mentioned earlier, we can always go back to the File button and it'll give us a bunch of templates, and you can even click over here for more templates. That is great. It comes with a lot of set templates for you to utilize. I would highly recommend, if you're new to Excel, always go to a blank workbook. Play around, use your data. That's going to be the best way for you to learn and explore Excel as you go. We're going to go through some data entry now just to show you the basic functions and how to navigate entering your data, but playing with a blank workbook is going to be your best option. Okay, so now we want to enter some data. So we're JiK Labs and we have a couple of invoices and salespeople and data that we want to take and analyze. So we're going to start first. We're going to click on cell A1 and this is going to be our header row. So we're going to enter all of the titles of items that we're going to enter down below. So this is going to be invoice number. The second, as you can see, invoice number is way too big. So there are a couple ways to change the width of your column. So you can right click on the A, which highlights the entire column, and then you can say column width. Right now it's set at 8.43. Well, I don't have a clue what size it needs to be, so let's go 35. And hit OK. And we're going to see that's probably too big. We're going to come up between A and B, and you're going to see a black line with two arrows pointing in either direction. You could click and hold and move back and forth to create the column width. Well, that is difficult, and it's not really difficult, but it's not exact science. But there's a quicker way. Let's put this back to where it was to begin with. If we put it between A and B and we see that black line with double arrows and double click, it will automatically set the correct column width for what data that you have down below. So now let's continue entering our title bar. So we need the date, then we're going to need the salesperson, we're going to want cost, and we're going to want the sale amount. So now you can see we have a couple of columns, or one column actually, that is not the correct size. But if you highlight the multiple columns by clicking on A and holding and going through E, and then on any of these in-betweens where you get that black line with the double arrows, if you double click, it will reset the column width for you. Right now I can tell you we're already going to have an issue because the date column is going to be too small when we start entering data. But let's start entering some data and see how it goes. There are two ways you can get around the cells. You can click wherever you want to go, or you can use your keyboard arrow keys. Also, you can tab, enter, and if you tab, it'll take you to your right. If you press and hold shift and hit tab, it will take you backwards. The enter key will take you down the next row. The arrow keys will take you in the direction in which the arrows are. All right. So now let's start entering some data. So now we have our very simplistic title column. So what I'm going to do is I clicked on number 1 and that highlighted the entire row. We're going to come back up to our home ribbon and we're going to click on this bold B to make everything bold. Now everything that we enter in row 1 will enter in bold. Just to show you. So now let's enter in some data. So we're going to start with invoice 1001. We're going to enter in a date of, let's say, 6/1/2021, and the salesperson was Bob. Bob sold $50 worth of material for $125. And I hit the enter key, and if you're tabbing through a row like this and you hit the enter key, it takes you back to where you started. If you enter in some information, let's say we're going to enter 1002, and that was sold on 6/2/2021, and that was sold by Alice. She sold 75 at 150. And now, since I'm using the arrow keys and I hit the enter, it only takes me down a line. So for quick data entry, it is easy to utilize the tab key, because when you hit enter, it will take you back to the beginning, almost like a typewriter feature. So we're going to go 1003, and that was sold, oh, and guess what, 6/3. Oh, see, here we go. I only entered 6/3 and hit enter. And that just wrote the 3rd of June. Well, we don't want our data like that. We want our data a little bit more consistent. So we can set the pre-formatting for the entire column that will aid us as we go, or we can always go back after the fact to do the formatting. So if we click on the column B, we can go to our home tab in a ribbon bar and come over here to numbers. Well, right now it's a general number, so it's going to assume it could be no specific format. There are some set formats right here, so let's just pick the short date for now. And there, that has changed that date to the same format as everything else above. So this was sold by Jack, and he sold 125 at $200. So now let's say we have a bunch of invoices to enter, and they are in sequential order. Well, let's highlight these 3 invoices here, these invoice numbers. When we highlight all 3 of those numbers, there's a little green box down here in the lower right hand corner, and if we hover over that, we're going to see a little plus sign. So click and drag down, you'll see that it auto-populated and filled out that data down below because Excel recognized that they were in numerical order. So now that's a little cheat that we can go, and if let's just say we only sold 1 invoice a day, we could do the same thing over here. Oh, you see this hashtags? That means this column is not big enough for this date to show. So we need to come back up top and reformat that column. We did so by clicking between B and C, and it auto formatted that width for us. So let's complete this information. So now that we have our data entered and all of our information, we're curious to know what our total sales and total cost were. So we can come down here, and we're going to call this, we're going to write right here, totals. Anytime we want to make an equation in Excel, we start with the equal sign. That is a notification to Excel that you're about ready to enter equation. So basic math, we would just take all of these cells and add them up. So if you had your calculator, you would do 50 plus 75 plus 125 plus 100. And we can do that here. We could do 50 or D2 plus D3 plus D4 plus D5 and so on and so forth. And that would give us that answer. But there's an easier way. If we hit equals and type in sum and open parentheses, we can click and drag all the numbers that we want to add up. Now this is adding up all of our costs, but we do want to add up all these numbers. So should we highlight both columns? No, because that'll give us the total for both columns. So we will highlight this column, which is D2 to D12. So this shows us that we're starting at D2, colon means through or to D11. And we're going to close the parentheses and hit enter. And that gives us the totals of those cells. What we're going to do right now is we're going to go ahead and make everything bold so these numbers stand out a little bit more. So our cost of these sales for the first 10 days was $1,100. Now we want to do the same exact thing for our sales. Well, I could come over here and do equal sum again, but we already have that equation. So we can come over here and come up top and copy this equation, click on E12, and then come back up and paste. So you can see now that when we click on D12, it took this equation, sum of D2 to D11, and when we copied it one cell to the right, it changed it from sum of D to E2 to E11. And now we have all the totals of the sales amounts. Let's just say we wanted, so keep in mind, these cells, without any locking them into place, will update as you move to the right. If we were to copy this cell and paste it here, it would give us 0 because it would be looking for the sum of F2 to F11 and there's nothing there. Another thing you can do with a Microsoft Excel equation is if you double click on this cell, F12, it will show you where it's trying to pull this data from. We can see here that it's looking to sum F12 to F11, but there's no data in there, so it's not reporting anything. So let's just enter some data real quick. 1 plus 2 plus 3. That equals 6. So that equation is already there, and we're able to put that data in there. So let's just say we wanted to add something. We wanted to add GP dollars, gross profit dollars. And now the gross profit is the sales amount minus the cost. So what we want to do first is hit the equal sign. We want to select the sale minus the cost. And that's $75. Now we want to repeat that for all the way down below. We can either copy, well, first of all, we could either do each equation manually, but we're all too lazy to do that, myself included. We can copy and paste, or we can be on this cell, hit that little green dot on the lower right hand side and drag it down, and it'll copy those equations down below. And since we've already had this equation down below for the summation, it has tallied up that column for us already. Let's say you wanted to see that these are actually dollars. So you can come up here, highlight these columns, come back to your home tab, go down to your ribbon, and right here there's a shortcut for the dollar sign or whatever currency you may be. But since we're in the United States, we're going to use the dollar sign. And now that has our basic data entry. Now we have this very basic data entered into our Excel sheet. Now keep in mind that this could be hundreds and hundreds of rows or hundreds and hundreds of columns. There could be a lot of data to sort through. So let's just say we want to say, what's the highest sale that we've had? And that's another equation within Excel. So we would hit the equal sign and type in max. And we're going to open the parentheses because that's how we're going to tell Excel what range of cells to look in. So again, we're going to select from E2 down to E12. We're going to close the parentheses and hit enter. So that's telling us our max sale was 1,550, which is invoice 1,006. And let's come over here to reference that as a max. And then while we're at it, we want to know what our lowest sale was. So we're going to come in over here and do the same thing. MIN, open parentheses, highlight the same cells, which is E2 to E11, close those parentheses and hit enter. And that will show us that's $125. Now let's just take it the next step farther. What's our average sale? We can hit the equal sign and type in the word average, spell it correctly, and then open parentheses. Whoops, I'm in the wrong cell reference. Perfect example. This is supposed to be in column E, but I've started typing in column D. So if I were to hit enter right now, it would say it's an error because it's not the correct cell reference. So I could delete everything out and then hit the enter key. But anytime you click on a cell in Excel, whether there's data there or no data, or you started to type and you were like, it's not supposed to be there, you can just press the escape key and it will cancel everything out like you were doing. Let's just say I started to type in here by accident and I wanted to do the average here. Oh, wait, I didn't want to do that there. If I hit enter right now, it would give me an issue. But if I hit the Excel key, it would take it back to where it was before I started typing. Now let's do that one more time. Average. Oh no, that's not where I wanted it to be, and I hit enter. Ah, it's telling me I'm missing some things like we said it was going to. So that's not a good example. So let's say I start typing here again and call this, I accidentally selected D15 when it needed to be D16. So I typed in average and I hit enter. Oh man, that's not where that's supposed to be, but I've already hit the enter key, so the escape is not going to save me this time. So at the very, very top on the Microsoft window, you see this little arrow that's pointing backwards. Well, that's your undo key. You're going to use that a lot. I use that a lot. So you could sit here, click undo, and it put it right back where it needed to be. And we can come back down to D12 where we need to be and do average. And now we're going to put in the average equation. Equals average, open parentheses, and we're going to highlight those same cells. Now you don't have to highlight it per se. You can also type it in, E2 colon E11 and close parentheses. So that's going to tell us our average sale was $320. We had a max, min, and average. All good to know information. So once we have our max, min, and average numbers entered, we were reviewing some of the data and realized, wow, that max sale is pretty high. And we looked through and found that Alice sold $1,550 for $75. Well, that's some pretty good margin. But it actually only supposed to be $155. So we can just retype that data and we'll look down below and all of our numbers, our totals as well as our max, min, and average have updated. That will be true for everything within the confines of Excel. If you change something within the range of an equation and you change that data, these numbers will update. One other information we would like to know is the number of invoices we have. So if we come in here and says equals count, come in here, open parentheses, and we're going to just select all these. And we're going to close the parentheses, and we went down further, just assuming that there may be more data to come. Up, and it told us 10. But you see that? It's in the dollar sign. But we know that's not $10 of invoices. We know that's just a general number. So we can come back up here, highlight this cell, come back up to our home, and we're just going to call it general. And that's going to give us 10 invoices. One thing to note, numbers always justify or format justification right. Words and text, justification left. So if you want to change that formatting, again on your home screen, we can come in here and find the center and center that. Same thing with our salespeople. If we want to center their names, we can come in here and center them. Likely so with invoices, centered. Now if you notice again on our count sheet, we went much further down. So let's just say we added in some more data. We did 10, 11, 10, 12, oops, 10, 12. And it is counting as we put more data in there. Of course, this data is no good, so we want to back that out. There's two ways we could do that. We could hit the undo key to get back to where we were, or we could highlight this data. We can right click and say clear contents, or we can just press the delete key. And then see that data erased, and we're back down to not 10 invoices. One last thing we want to look at today is we've showed sum, addition, and subtraction. We want to look at divide. Same basic principle, so we want to find out what the GP percentage is of these sales. So we're going to type GP percent, hit enter, and then we're going to hit the equal sign, and we're going to take GP dollars divided by sales amount. It's going to give 60%. Now let's just say we didn't have GP dollars. We wanted to do, and we had to do that math ourselves. So we could hit equal sign, parentheses, we could take 150 minus 75, close parentheses, and then divide by the sale price. Excel follows the order of operations, so we would do E3 minus D3 first and divide by E3. And it gives us 0.5. If we were to copy this equation from up below to down here, it would give us 50%. These are some really good margins. Likely so, we could see what the total average margin is, 39%. Still all very good. Since this is a total, we're going to come in here and bold this guy, and we'll be good to go. So now that we've got our data entered, and we feel it's pretty good, we want to print it out, take a look at it. So you can go to File Print right here, or you can hit Control P, which is another reason why paste is Control V and not Control P, because Control P for print has already been utilized. So if you were to print this page right now, you see we're going to do it, we hit Control P, it's going to default to a print to PDF, but you see this? All those grids are gone. And it is very difficult to read. This is how it would print on a sheet of paper. So we don't want that. So we need to do a little bit more formatting before we're able to print this out. So we're going to hit the Escape key, get back to our window, and we're going to highlight all of our data because we want to have the grid print when we print. So what we need to do is we need to add the formatting. So if we hover right here where this little window looks, that's actually adding borders. So we want to add borders to all of our data. And then we're going to just highlight some of these and add this data. Well, we could have highlighted everything like this, but with doing so, we would have two empty boxes here with no data. It's just a prettier format if you don't have those there. So we're going to keep it the way it was, and now we just have all of this boxed in as such. We're going to do the same thing for down here. Now when we hit Control P, you're going to see that it shows it will print all of our information, and it's nice and much easier to read than it was a couple moments ago. So here's our Excel window, and it's going to look a little different than a moment ago because now we're sharing our entire display. We ran into an issue when we were trying to show you some of these features of adding the borders, of when you down click some arrows, these menus were not showing up as we were recording. So we're showing you the whole screen to show you a little bit more detail about that process. So there are many options of borders that you could choose. We could say just a thick outside border, and now we've added a thick outside border to everything, and our original grid was still inside. A feature I like to use is Control 1, which is the same as highlighting your cells, right-clicking, and saying Format Cells. And then you're going to get this little window that pops up, and this is where you can do your formatting of the numbers or text, the alignment, is it centered or what have you, font, you can change the font and the sizes, and the borders. So right in here, I like this option because you can do it all in one sweep. So let's just say, let's go back to none. But we want outside and inside. But if you see here, it made everything very thick. Well, we don't want that very thick, so we're going to select the thickness of the line, super thick, and we want the outside line thicker. And we're going to come in here, and let's just say we want a dash line for the cross windows. So we're going to hit that dash line, and we're going to check that. And now we can see here we have a nice thick border here, and the dash is inside. So we're going to hit OK. We're going to come back here. It may be difficult to see, but let's do a Control Print. And now you can see we have a nice thick border with the dashes in between the cells. It's a matter of preference and formatting. Of course, we would try to make all of this look a little bit more uniform, but we're just trying to show a couple of different ways to do this. I mentioned earlier, or I just mentioned a moment ago, that when we were in Control 1 with the formatting, you can change the font. I did not mention earlier, but also right here, we can change all of the font and sizes on the home ribbon. We can come select all the fonts we want and change their sizes as well. I think that covers it for day one of our in-depth exploration of Microsoft Excel. We almost forgot one very important feature, and that's to save your data. What's the point of doing all this work if you close that out, say no, we don't need to save, and just to redo it every single time. Hopefully, as you go and progress, you'll be able to build templates so that this data doesn't change, but all your equations will be there. whether this data is different or not. So you click on File, and we're going to do a Save As since this is our first saving, or technically since it's the first save, you can use Save, but File Save As. We're going to save it in the OneDrive, and we're going to call this, we already had a file there, but we're going to over-save that file, and we're going to hit Save. Microsoft is saying, hey, that's already there. Do you want to replace it? And we're going to say yes. One thing to note, since we're using Microsoft 365 and we save that to OneDrive, this auto-save feature automatically turned on. And it's going to automatically save it as we work to the cloud. One of the very cool features about Microsoft 365 is that you can get to your Office apps via the web. We just open up our browser and we went to office.com, we logged in, and then here we are on the left-hand side. We have Word, Excel, everything. So we have our OneDrive, and let's click on the file that we just made. It's loading, and here we go. Here we are in a web browser using the office.com with our OneDrive that comes with Microsoft 365 to access our data pretty much anywhere, whether the computer has Microsoft Excel or not. It's just a really cool feature that comes with Microsoft 365. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe and like. Leave us a comment down below. Like we said many times before, this is our third video on this channel. We're trying to get up and running, and we're open to suggestions and comments. If we missed something that you desperately want to know about Excel, let us know. We will gladly dive into that feature for you. Again, this is JiK Labs. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you again next week.